Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here today, to everybody in the room, and to all of those of you tuning in online. My name is Stuart DeCue. I'm the Program Director at the Yale Center for Business and the Environment, and a 2011 graduate of the School of Management and the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. We're coming for all the online audience. We're coming to you live today from the School of Management, and really many thanks for tuning in, which what should be a really interesting presentation. In a moment, I'm going to introduce Andy, our speaker for the day, but I wanted to start with a few announcements about this series. So this talk is sponsored by the Blueprint for Clean Energy webinar series and the Clean Energy Finance Forum, both programs and initiatives of the Yale Center for Business and the Environment. Blueprint for Clean Energy is a webinar series that really looks to feature the leading practitioners and researchers who are driving thought and action in clean energy. And so we're thrilled that Andy's here to join us for that. And this spans opportunities in the corporate, nonprofit, and public and private arenas. The Clean Energy Finance Forum is our platform here at Yale to feature and advance the growth of the energy efficiency finance and solar energy finance market in the United States by providing high-quality news, building professional dialogue, and fostering innovation. And one of the things we think is also unique about that, it provides a platform for students here at Yale who are researching and engaging on these topics to work with professional editors to be able to craft stories that are at the leading edge of thought in this, the kind of things that we hope are 24 months ahead of the New York Times, The Economist, and others, so that the professional audience can really digest that. And for more information about these programs, please visit our website at cbey.yale.edu. This talk is being broadcast live, so anyone in the audience here, if you ask a question during Q&A, please make sure to press the microphone so that the online audience can hear you. And online listeners, in the YouTube link that you're looking at, please make sure that you're submitting questions via the YouTube dialog box. That's where folks in the room here will be capturing those and then relaying those questions live to Andy during the Q&A. So now I would like to introduce Andy Padian, President of Padian NYC Consulting. Andy is a private building science consultant with over 35 years of experience in the unique building science of multifamily buildings. His current clients include private building owners, community development agencies, schools, universities, and other training entities, utilities, environmental organizations, and emerging professionals seeking to get into the field. And he's performed detailed analysis of thousands of buildings across the country. So this provides unique on-the-ground insight and a wealth of experience for people to tap into. So we're thrilled that you're able to join us, Andy. Thanks so much, and look forward to hearing your presentation.
Okay, thanks. I feel like George Bush Jr., and I should say, please clap now. He actually did that last night. No, but you don't have to. It's okay. Okay, we're going to try to keep people awake today, but I've got a gun to my head that I can only talk for 45 minutes. I'm used to speaking for 6 full days on some of the things I'm talking about today, so excuse me if I'm a little bit verbose and excuse me if I'm a little bit fast, but deal with it. I'm not a professor. I am a professional, and I'm trying to get a point across to you on a lot of stuff. So this is me. Well, who is this guy? Well, I'm an energy and buildings geek, and for my major job, I walk through buildings and make them more energy efficient, and I'm really good at it, and I'm actually internationally known for fixing multifamily buildings. I spent the last 35 years learning about why buildings go bad, and I started in energy policy, as many of you may be in now. I worked for the mayor's office in New York City under Mayor Koch. Then I worked in energy efficiency, health and safety, durability, sustainability. I'm now doing a lot of work still with Sandy recovery because even though it was more than 3 years ago, we still haven't fixed all the buildings that were destroyed by Sandy. 8 years ago, I was hired by a bank because they wanted to start a green loan program, and I helped kick off their green loan program. Banking is a really interesting thing. I say interesting the way women say interesting. When you look at your boyfriend and say, honey, that shirt's really interesting. That means take it to the Salvation Army immediately. But banking is very interesting, and I learned a lot about it, and it was really helpful to me. When I go to a building, I don't just measure things, I measure people. So I spend about the same time talking to people as I do looking at systems. And typically, when I go to a building, if I listen to what the owner says, and then what the super says, and then what the manager says, and then what the occupants say, if I divide all those things by 4, I kind of get the truth about what's going on in that building. So today I want to talk about some things that I've learned. This class is so high-tech, it's blowing me away. There's screens everywhere. I feel like I'm at Jeopardy or something. So today the agenda is I'm going to talk about data, about energy usage in the Northeast, some national and some others. I'm going to talk about resource efficiency in buildings and that it's not about sexy technology. So you will not today hear me say ground source heat pumps, solar panels, green roofs, windmills. I'm going to talk about very simple technologies to make buildings work. I'm going to talk about different kinds of financing and very simple calculations of energy resource and efficiency and what that means in building cash flow and refinancing. I want you to stop treating sustainability and energy efficiency as a special case. There's nothing that annoys me more when an owner is refinancing the debt on his building and he says to you, he's doing all this stuff on the building, and then you say, you really need a new boiler, and he says, what's the payback on that? So I'm going to explain my angst about that. And then greater energy efficiency in buildings increases both the value of the buildings and the money in our pockets. And as I like to say, those of you listening in at home can't see this, but I'm reaching into my pocket right now and pulling out a wad of cash. This is green. This is what building owners pay attention to. They don't pay attention to carbon footprints and cash flow and BTUs per square, no, excuse me, and BTUs per square foot per heating degree day. They want to know cash. And I'm going to show you some cool case studies. So how many people that are in the room here? There's, by the way, those of you that are listening at home, there's 650 people in the room here. What's the online audience? How many people?
Right now?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you're widely outnumbered there, online audience. There's some interactive people here that really like stuff. So how many people in the room are graduate students? Looks like all of you. How many are undergrads? Looks like none of you. So you don't allow the lower class to come here. Okay. Professors, instructors? Yeah, okay. You kind of run the building here. So engineers, architects, building geeks. I think everybody here. Oh, you're a building geek? Engineer? Okay, I'm not going to talk slow just for you, okay? Yeah, and you are?
An engineer.
Engineer, okay. Well, I'm going to speed things up, so you guys got to pay attention. Policy people, government people? I think you're all grad students. Maybe you're a little bit of both. Energy auditors, any raters, any contractors? Anybody ever work for an energy service company? Yeah, what?
Residential energy auditor.
Oh, we have a residential energy auditor here. So he's a guy that actually fixes buildings. And any others that I missed? Yeah, what?
I'm a research scientist in renewables.
Research scientist in renewables. I had another hand up over here, yeah?
I have a portfolio of multifamily properties in New York City.
Oh, wow. An owner of multifamily buildings in New York City. Okay, we won't use the word that begins with slum and ends in lord. Yes?
Energy efficiency consulting for commercial real estate.
Okay, and an energy efficient for commercial. Were you all talking into the microphone? Because I'm repeating. Okay, make a point to do that. Here's a quick question. The picture on the left is Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town. It was designed in 1949. It was built from 1950 to 1951. It's in Midtown Manhattan. It is 11,000 units. It's master metered for everything. Primarily people coming back from World War II moved in there. Many of them are still there. On the right is the first LEED gold building in the United States. It's called the Solaire. It's in downtown Manhattan in Battery Park City. Which of these buildings is more efficient to heat? Which building heats more efficiently? The old building or the LEED gold building? How many people think the old building? Raise your hand. Wow, about half. How many people think the new building? How many people wouldn't raise their hand no matter what? Cowards. Okay, good. There's one coward and about 50-50 everything else. So I worked in the South Bronx back in the 80s. Go back one and show that picture. I worked in the South Bronx in the 80s, and I walked through football fields of rubble all the time. And I fixed buildings that were, many buildings that were owned by the city of New York through tax foreclosure and owner abandonment. But here, this is what the South Bronx looks like today. a lot of improved buildings, some of them very efficient, some of them old and original, but owners fixing them up quite a lot. But as I walk through buildings all the time, I see a 7-to-1 problem. And I'm going to walk behind the podium now because I need the pointer to show you things. So this is a property management company out of Boston. And for a study on health and safety, they looked at their apartment costs per apartment, not per square foot. And the mouse just disappeared. Oh, there it is. No, it's not there. So if you look along the top, water and sewer, the low is 117 per apartment, up to $977 per apartment. Pest control goes as low as 32 and as high as 156. Go down to landscaping, and you'll see the low is 0, but the high is 187. Okay, I get an inner city property that doesn't have any grass. I can understand that. Lighting bulbs and fixtures as low as $6 and as high as 38. Why do we have these wide variances in buildings? And why don't owners look at this? This disturbs me. Well, this isn't just bulbs and cabinets and appliances. In multifamily buildings, there's catastrophic waste. Oh, you're an owner, so you know this. There's catastrophic waste in groups of buildings. And this is a range of energy usage I've seen in buildings. And if you look to the far left, it says single family USA. The average building in the United States, single family, uses about 5 BTUs per square foot per heating degree day to heat it. And the little darker green thing next to it is about a third more to make hot water. But if you look at low income single family homes, and this is 10,000 buildings, 10,000 single family homes in New York State, if they are low income, their energy use triples. And whenever I'm speaking to members of the Republican National Committee, they say, well, that's because all these people get all their energy for free. No, it isn't that at all, and it has nothing to do with it. Low-income people actually are home more often because they have 3 or 4 people working jobs, and the heat is on 24 hours a day. And if you look at the difference between 5 and 15, it's the heat being on 8 hours versus 24 hours. So it's a big difference. In 1996, I looked at 400, and I know this seems like a long time ago, but this is still real figures that are pretty close today. In 1996, I looked at low-income buildings across New York State that were multifamily, and they were being improved by the New York State Weatherization Assistance Program. I did probably 75% of the audits, level 2 ASHRAE audits, and the buildings performed at about 24 BTUs per square foot per heating degree day, and they used about 52% of their energy for heat and 48% of their energy for water. But of those, the next chart over, which is the really tall one, I found brand new rehabs paid for by our tax dollars. Gut rehabs paid for by HUD, the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal, but they were at 40 BTUs per square foot per heating degree day, 8 times the amount of energy used by a single family home. And the major reason behind that is architects and engineers, as they were building the building, were told by the various government entities, you need to value engineer the buildings. Value engineering means getting something out of the building that's more effective for a better price. When a government entity says value engineering, they mean take stuff out. So the buildings were under-insulated, there were no controls on the radiators, the boilers were as cheap as could possibly be. The boilers had no ability to turn back the heat at night. That's just some of the things that are wrong. Today, in middle-income multifamily buildings, the 1, 2, 3, 4 bar over, I find their energy use is about 14 BTUs per square foot per heating degree day, and they pay about 60% for heat and 40% of their money for hot water. But in 2002, I worked with a developer whose family has been in the business for 30 years. And we convinced him to change some things that he did in his building. And he built 70 units of affordable housing in the middle of the South Bronx called Melrose Commons. They performed at 5 BTUs per square foot per heating degree day. The builder said they cost him an average of $1.36 per square foot more. This is stuff where logic is really simple. If you look at this chart as BTUs per square foot per heating degree day, and then go back to what the cost of gas was then, this is a difference of between under $1 and over $7 a square foot. This is very common in multifamily buildings, that owners of multifamily buildings don't see how much their buildings cost. As long as the buildings are profitable, they don't understand the cash flow from saving energy. From 2001 to 2005, people got reduced cost energy audits from the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And these are the pre-energy heating usages in these buildings. And I'm hoping that the pointer works now, but it doesn't come up. It's there kinda, as soon as I stop moving. So if those of you at home look at all of these up in the 25 and 20 BTUs per square foot per heating degree day, those are what we call pigs. And you would think that those buildings would turn their heat down a little, because I've measured temperatures in apartments at 91 degrees when the owner is paying for the heat. But then down here, I see this little guy down here, he's below 1 BTU per square foot per heating degree day. Now he either doesn't provide heat to his tenants, or he's got a super building. What does he think I can do for him? So owners actually don't look at this stuff. Finally, I worked for, well, not finally, when I was working for a bank, this is CPC, the Community Preservation Corporation, in every single loan they put together, they told a building owner, your oil or gas usage will be under $250 per room. Not per square foot, not per apartment, but per room. And if you look at this arrow right here, these are the buildings that performed at under 200. These are the buildings that performed under 250. But all of these didn't meet the expectations. So if you look over at the chart on the side, out of 319 buildings, 163 of them performed as the bank said they were going to. That's a little around half. You guys are business majors, so you can do math better than I can. If you are batting 500, that's really good in baseball. If you're batting 500 and you're in a bank, that stinks. This is common because banks have a practice of taking numbers using the PFA method. Would you engineers say what the PFA method is? Plucked from air. That's correct. It's just a wild guess. And if you look here, this is an actual building. This is the Morrisania Hospital in the Bronx that was converted from a vacant building to affordable housing apartments. And if you look at the chart, the lighter color is projected costs. The dark blue is actual costs. In year one, the energy costs in the building were 50% higher than projected by the bank, and they were 65% higher in year 9. These are buildings that are going to fail. Fortunately, in year 10, they brought me in to do a detailed energy analysis of the building, and we've cut the energy use in the building by about 40%. CPC looked at the maintenance and operations data for all 700-something loans that they have. These are all affordable housing loans. And buildings are either heated with oil or gas. So if you look at this, about 10,000 or 8,000, or excuse me, 10 million or 8 million of the total money being paid out by owners is for oil or gas, that's heat and hot water, and a very little bit for electricity. But look at water. Now, I've met with people in the New York City Mayor's office doing a program for cash flow efficiency, energy efficiency for multifamily buildings, and I said, where's water? They said, oh, we're not doing water. I'm like, water's the biggest cost to building owners, not only in New York City, but in Boston, in Hartford. I actually don't know New Haven numbers that well. So you want to see a really bad management company? Here's a really bad one. This is BTUs per square foot per heating degree day. This is one of the top owners of property in New York City. This is their multifamily energy usage, again, in BTUs per square foot per heating degree day. I'll convert it to dollars when this was done in 1985. Imagine if you had a group of buildings that ranged between under $1 and over $4 a square foot. You business people, would you start firing people? What's going on here? Nobody's looking at these numbers. Who is this slumlord, do you think? Who? No, Trump doesn't own anything. He actually doesn't own a single building. It's all smoke and mirrors. I know that surprises everyone here. Yeah?
The New York City Housing Authority?
No, the New York City Housing Authority actually does better. This is all the multifamily buildings owned by this particular owner, and they own many other buildings. And the Housing Authority owns many more buildings than this. Yeah? Come on, it's one of your relatives. What? Well, you're very close. Someone said a dorm. This is Yale University. Oh, I'm sorry, this isn't Yale. This is Yale where we are. This is Columbia. Columbia owns lots of property in New York City. and their multifamily buildings are complete pigs. But walk around the Columbia campus and you'll see lots of green stickers on their building that says, we're green. They're not green, they're pigs. Look at this. 2% of California's energy is used to manufacture this. What is it? What?
Water?
Nope.
Moving water?
Water was one. Yeah?
Wine?
Wine? No. Good answer.
Insulation?
No. Insulation. No. We manufacture all insulation in Mexico. Yeah? Okay, I'll give you a big hint. It's a business that's recently been imported into other states. It involves large buildings, massive heating and ventilation loads, high profit margins, and no tenants.
Data center?
I'm sorry?
Data center?
No, data centers actually have tenants, but it's a good guy. Yeah?
That was mine.
You lose. Yeah?
Marijuana?
What?
Marijuana?
Someone said marijuana. That is the correct answer. Marijuana takes a lot of pumps and air and stuff. I actually talked to a marijuana manufacturer 3 months ago and suggested he change his lighting from fluorescent to LED. And this guy went into this detailed scientific stuff about why LED lights don't work well enough and they have to get a different spectrum for LED. Anyway, that's pot growing. We don't have to talk about that. But pot growers are the same thing. If you look at the column far to the left, the worst pot growers are over 7,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram of finished cannabis, while the improved ones are under 1. We are back to the 7-to-1 thing. There are buildings that are complete slobs, and there are buildings that are very efficient. But it's not just the dopey New York City building owners and the rich Ivy League trustafarians or the stoners who have a 7-to-1 problem. I said trustafarians. I'm terribly sorry. Oh, this is me. Last month, I got to go to Alaska. I'm a New Yorker. Every time I leave New York City, I always say to myself, I can't wait to go back. I went to Alaska. I didn't want to return. It's absolutely fabulous there. But I spoke for the Alaska Housing Finance Agency, and I talked to them about energy efficiency in buildings. Some of the slides that I'm showing you are what I showed them. But they said to me, you have to read this report about Alaska to see how bad, to see what our buildings are like. So I looked at their buildings. And if you look at, government people, this is the energy efficiency of public buildings that was written by the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. And my arrow didn't come in. But if you look down, it says the annual ECI range. That's the Energy Cost Index. Buildings in Alaska range from 68 cents per square foot to $32.96 per square foot. Now, I get it. One of them's an empty warehouse. The other's a data center. But when they broke it down by sector, athletics, education, healthcare. Look at healthcare, the fourth one down. Their average and median are about the same, and their max and minimum are really close. They're watching their dollars per square foot. But then look at washaterias. Those are laundromats, okay? Because in Alaska, if you have a remote community, the only place you can wash clothes is in town. And maybe sometimes that's the only place you can take a shower. But they range from $108 per square foot to $7 a square foot. This is crazy. And there's catastrophic waste all over the place. They looked at their energy consumption by end use. What a surprise. The big blue chunk on the left is space heat, and it's 72% of their energy use, and it's 56% of their cost. That's the chart next to you. Well, if heating is so expensive in Alaska, couldn't we fix it somehow? Well, if they look at it, they find out that the space heat loss by component for all audited buildings, that big blue chart again is ventilation and air leakage. The buildings leak. They need to be caulked, and the ventilation needs to be fixed. It's crazy. It's the same thing that's wrong with all of our buildings. Our buildings leak. We don't make them tighter. Our buildings are ventilated poorly or too much, and we don't balance them. I walk into thousands and thousands and thousands of buildings in my career, and technical inefficiency is exactly the same in all the buildings. If I push this, it'll go. First off, tighten the buildings. Increase air sealing and fire stopping. If you say you're going to air seal a building, Building owners get scared that their tenants are going to suffocate. But if you tell them you're going to fire stop the building, it's the same thing. And it meets code. And it stops fire from spreading. In areas, every place in buildings. Good systems. Why do I hire an engineer, nothing against you engineers, why do I hire an engineer to write a specification for a boiler replacement or an air conditioning replacement that the paper is 2 inches thick when I get it? The first inch tells me every single code that has happened since the beginning of time. The bottom half tells me everything that the engineer and architect are not responsible for. And in the center, there's one piece that draws the basement and shows a box and a circle. And it says, put boiler here, put hot water heater here, replace with same. Okay? That's like going in and taking your iPhone and changing it in to a dial phone. Okay? It's backwards. Don't replace with same. Upgrade the building controls. If you walk by a building and all the windows are open, the building's overheated. So you have to fix that. Save water. I was very impressed. I went into the bathroom here, and the bathroom sinks here are running at a little under a gallon a minute. That's really good. Most bathroom sinks in most LEED buildings run at 2.5 gallons a minute. That typically makes water splash on the floor and in your face. Shower heads are 5 gallons a minute. It's like the water's all over the place. Okay, I'm a big guy, and I can't get 5 gallons a minute on me when I'm in the shower no matter what. Okay, we catastrophically waste water. Toilets are the big waster. Fix the ventilation systems. They're big, they suck a lot of air out of the building. In the bottom floor of an apartment building, they draw 7 cubic feet per minute. On the top, they draw 140. We want to balance them at about 35. There's an easy way to do that. Brighter spaces. Let's get better light. The guys came in here today to show me this space. There's mostly LED lights in here, but there's halogens where they don't need to be. The lights aren't dimmable. What the heck? This is a performance space. This should be a little more controllable. And I love that this building has a lot of daylighting. That's very nice. I don't know if the exterior glass is high efficiency, but there's a lot of daylighting here. Better building enclosures. Specify better windows and insulation. You can't say to insulation, place fiberglass in walls. No, you have to have an actual way how to do it. And this is the easy thing, Energy Star appliances, motors, elevators, and lights, but there's 2 things that are even more difficult to get done, and this is psychology-related stuff. Owners don't get help from building professionals. They listen to their cousin Vinny before they listen to anyone. And this is a big mistake. They listen to a contractor. Windows will save you 40%. Let me explain something to you. Unless a building doesn't have windows, windows won't save you 40%. I've never seen a job where windows saved more than 5. Okay? So you need help. Talk to people. And get everybody together in the same room. The super, the manager, everybody else. And then talk to your peers that can help. Start looking at the programs before you do this big retrofit or before you build a new building. Get the team together. Where is the money available? What money can I get to do this? Okay, now move. So when you talk to building owners and decision makers, if you want to really convince them of something, take them outside their building. Walk them around. Pretend to them that they don't, ask them to pretend they don't own or manage it. And they'll suddenly see open windows in their building. And they'll say, those stupid tenants. It's like, it's not the stupid tenants, it's the stupid owner. You're overheating the building. And that's the only way they can turn it off. Look around and point stuff out to them.
Thank you for that.
And what's that?
Thanks.
Oh, now the building owner in the crowd is like, hey, I should really do this. And all owners don't speak that way, I'm sorry. And I hate the expression think outside the box, but I was with an energy service company the other day, and all they wanted to do is the same old crap. And I said, we can do something really easy, and it'll be cheaper. We can change, I won't get into the technical stuff, but they were like, wow, that is a lot easier. Anyway, so when you want to finance this stuff, you can do it a lot of ways. You can ask the government for money. There's 2 chances of that, slim and none, and slim just left. So there's some grant money, there's some low-cost financing, but not much. You can finance with a government or a utility rebate, that gives you a little bit of the money back, and that's a good deal. There's some people writing feverishly here. All of these notes, I think, are going to be available afterwards, so you don't have to write that feverishly. You can finance with a bank. If you own the building You have a mortgage already. So you could finance through the existing mortgage. What a crazy idea. You can go to an energy service company, but understand that's for buildings that either don't own their buildings or can't borrow money, like public buildings, like housing authorities, and understand that an energy service company, you need to have somebody helping you with an energy service company, and an energy service company is out to do as little as they can and get as much money as they can. So they want to pick the low-hanging fruit, which you can do by yourself typically in buildings, and they don't want to do a full scope. So you really need to have people working with you. Or you can just take cash out of your pocket and do it. And there's some other alternatives, but you know, I'm going to go through some of these. So I worked in a bank for 5 years, 6 years. And I heard this quote one day: "Don't ever say BTUs per square foot per heating degree day to me again. Give us a report card." Because bankers can't do math. I know this is very surprising to you, but bankers all have detailed calculators, and you say to them, "What's 100 divided by 5?" And they're like, hold on. Yeah, that came from a frustrated mortgage officer who I was trying to teach math to, and it was really difficult for him. But he had a great idea. Make it easier on me, I can make it easier on the owners. So in this very blurry graph that people don't like, we entered the fuel usage in the building. This is gas or oil. We entered the electric usage in the building. We entered the water use in the building, and out popped out of our fancy little spreadsheet, oh, here you are compared to every other building. Your building's fuel usage for heating is a C. Your building's oil usage for hot water is a B. Your building's common area electric use is a B. Your building's water use. We gave owners report cards. And when we looked at all of the report cards of all the buildings and charted them in this yellow chart that makes everything stand out so people can actually see it, one of these days, you'll see that we have a bell curve. And we can find out the failures. And the orangish color is electricity, and the greenish color is water, and the white is heating. And we know what to address in a building. And this is what we need to do. We need to look at what the biggest costs are and how to address them. Buildings that are retrofitted for energy efficiency as part of refinancing can save energy if we target excessive usage and retrofit accordingly. Why don't we do this as part of a retrofit? Why don't we do this as part of refinancing? When we're refinancing the debt on any building, why don't we say, what are the big energy costs and can we reduce them? But the problem is that bankers say energy costs are going to go up 3% per year in every building. And I took a commercial banking class at NYU, again, one of your sister organizations, and the guy with 40 years experience banker said to me, I said, is it possible that you could, while refinancing the debt on the building, retrofit the building and the building would use less energy? And to a classroom of 30 people, he said, no. No. It's not humanly possible to save energy in buildings if you're a banker. Frightening. This is frightening. We had the COO of our company, of the bank that I worked in, we had during Earth Day a couple of years ago, we had a bunch of kids come in to, see what a green loan program was like. And the chief operating officer said to these kids, why would a bank be interested in a building they're loaning money to saving energy? And my pal Charles Ottman, who was in the 5th grade, said, because they'll save money in their building and be able to pay your loan back faster. What the heck is wrong with bankers? A 5th grader can figure this out, but bankers can't. When cash flow increases, it's easier for them to pay your loan back. Banking transactions are about risk. Do you make enough money? Will the building have income? Expenses versus income. What are the expenses? But they expect all expenses to go up. How will the income increase in the building? That means higher rents. That's all they want to hear about. What are comparable buildings and rents in the building in your area? How much are other people getting? Who owns the title? Title searches are big. If 5 people own title to the building, you'll have trouble getting a loan. Will the building last the length of a loan? This is a good question. Most houses that are built in the United States now won't survive by the time their mortgage is over because they're built fast, thrown up. Because, the McMansions, everybody wants 6,000 square feet, but they don't know how to maintain anything because, well, let's just say they're The building's too big for them to maintain, and I'll be polite. And is there an environmental problem? A bank won't loan to you if you have asbestos, lead, mold in buildings. But energy audits are about the same thing. They're about improvement, but that's also about risk. How much energy and water does the building use? Can we reduce it and increase cash flow? If we talk about increased cash flow and not environmentalism, people talk to us. How will the results be attained or exceeded? Can we get better efficiency in the building by training the staff? Crazy idea. What are comparable usages in buildings? How do buildings do better? Who owns the buildings and who makes the decisions? Will the building last, or can we increase its life? And is there an environmental problem? We ask the same kind of questions. If you want to get kicked out of a banker's office, tell them, you just don't understand this. You're doing a retrofit in a building. It's a deep energy retrofit. It's LEED, it's Energy Star, it's Passive House, it's green. I'm an expert. We did a blower door analysis in the building at CFM 50. If you know what that means, that kind of says how much the building leaks. We're dense packing the walls. These are all things that scare people. Oh, we're air sealing the building in the attic. Yeah, a banker thinks you're going to suffocate the clients. This is really good. Or tell them we're doing a deep energy retrofit of the building, adding 4 inches of exterior insulation. Or maybe we're dense blowing the walls. We're moving a much smaller boiler to the roof and making it a condensing boiler. We're air sealing the apartments and the roof cavity, and we're reducing the water flow in the toilets, showers, and sinks. And the response from the banker is going to be this. They don't want any technical terms like that. They don't want the guy that owns buildings over here is shaking his head, yeah, my owner said, the bank has said that to me. But if you break it down and just say, we're refinancing the debt on the building, we're upgrading the fire stopping throughout the building. Oh, it's not air sealing, it's fire stopping. We're replacing the wall and roof insulation that has surpassed its useful life. Now you're talking to them. We're putting in a new boiler that will heat the building faster. Don't say high performance, don't say condensing, don't say smaller. Just tell them, simple. And we're installing high efficiency toilets and shower heads. High efficiency, that's all. And we have plans, and we have specs, and we have an architect, and we have an engineer, we have a project manager, and we have 3 bids. Bankers love you. They love you then, as long as you talk their language to them. Well, I'm going to run through the economics of doing this. So if you have a 20-unit building that's got $1,000 a month rent, that building pulls in $240,000 a year. But the expenses will be about $4,500 per unit. The taxes will be $2,500 a unit. The total expenses are $140,000 per unit. That means the net operating income, or NOI, is $100,000 because 240 minus 140 is $100,000. Okay, so there's your net operating income. But the property mortgage is currently $1.2 million. If you look at the debt coverage ratio, you take the $100,000, you divide it by 1.25, and they're able to borrow $80,000 a year. Divide that by 12, it's about $6,500 monthly payment. That's a 30-year loan at 5%. Cash flow is about $20 per year, $20,000 per year. Okay, these are all up on the web afterwards, but I just want to run through them. But if you do a retrofit and just pay for the retrofit, it's $5,000 per unit. That's $20,000 per year. The debt service is $10,000. 5 years at 6%, you pay $43,000. 10 years at 8%, you pay $68,000. You need approval from the first mortgage. During these times particularly, it's not very likely. And this adds a step and makes the process really difficult. But underwrite the savings into the first mortgage. The expenses are $90,000. Say 35% are for utilities. Project 20% savings. That makes an additional monthly payment of $525. You add that to the 30-year first mortgage of 5%. That's $98,000. It's very simple. It blends things in, and you have better cash flow. So Deutsche Bank put this book together. They studied it with a group called Stephen Winter Associates, who I used to work for. And they recognize the benefits of energy efficiency in multifamily underwriting. This is available on the web. It's 113 pages of very, very interesting reading. And it looks at energy usage in a lot of buildings. And Bright Power and the Center for Affordable Housing Finance did, and HUD put this report together about energy and water savings in multifamily retrofits. And here's the results that both studies found out. Number 1, retrofits produce significant energy and water savings. Wow. This is really great. Okay. Number 2, less efficient properties achieved higher post-retrofit savings. Okay, Lynn, can you come up here for a minute? Okay, Lynn is standing next to me. I'm 6'2" and 210, and she's 5'6" and maybe 103. Okay, we're standing next to each other. Less efficient properties achieved higher post-savings retrofit. That's like saying if Lynn and I went on the same diet at the same time, the best chance is I'd lose more weight because I'm big and fat and she's small and skinny. How stupid is this? Thank you very much. Give Lynn a hand, please. Thank you. How stupid is this? Okay. And both energy and water retrofits were cost effective. Water was more cost effective and more predictable. Fuel was second and electricity is third. And both energy and water savings vary widely at the individual property level because the savings vary because the starting energy use varies widely. Okay, this is 4th grade math. This is really easy stuff. So why not change the mortgage system? Majority of buildings have a mortgage. Make standard long-term financing the glue that brings it all together. You're required in most loans to get an appraisal, an environmental report, an engineering report. Why can't we add a benchmark? If the building is a high user, why can't we add an energy audit? This is very simple. Create a new mortgage delivery system and engage capitalism. I don't know if I can say capitalism here. I don't know if, oh, this is a business school. Okay, I can. That's good, okay. In energy efficiency finance, these are bad words. Payback. What's the payback on the boiler? I'm sorry, what's the payback on the shrubbery? What's the payback on the brick pointing? What's the payback on the new lobby? Owners ask this all the time. I'm increasing the life of the building and I'm increasing the cash flow. What's wrong with you? A free energy audit. A free energy audit is exactly what it's worth. You get what you pay for. And when you get a free energy audit from a window company, they say, you know what? You need windows. So you got to watch that. And green. Don't say green, don't say carbon footprint. I know you guys are all in the energy business, but nobody wants to hear about carbon. Nobody that owns a building. They don't care. They care about cash. And if you reduce the amount of cash that they're using in the building, and they get to go to Bimini 2 or 3 more times in a year, all these big owners go to Bimini. I had to find out where it is. It's an island off the coast of Florida. Anyway, they can go to Bimini more often, so they're happy. I went to energy policy school in Syracuse University, and I finished in 1978. And we used to talk about negawatts versus megawatts. And we said, you know, someday utility companies are going to realize that it's more effective for them to invest in energy conservation than it is for them to build power plants. And people laughed at us, and they told us we were on drugs. Well, it was the 70s. We were all on drugs. But last year, I did something called the BQDM, the Brooklyn Queens Demand Management Study, for 33,000 units of NESEA buildings in Brooklyn and Queens. And it was one of the most exciting things I've ever done, and it was fun, and it was a great team, primarily people from enterprise community development in New York City. And here's the really cool, Con Ed said, maybe we'll pay for this if you find energy conservation stuff because that's cheaper than us building a substation. And we found these retrofits were cost effective. And if you look at PDR, the percentage of demand reduction, those are in kilowatts, but if they get into 4 digits, they're megawatts. So the bottom line was 9.966 megawatt savings in 3/4 of Brooklyn. That's quite a nice chunk of savings, and there's nothing that's big in there. You know, I have to say the insulating the exterior walls wasn't that big. This is only electricity savings. This isn't gas. This isn't heating. This isn't hot water. So there's a lot more to save here. So I got a real crazy idea for all of you. Talk to a banker. Get a homework assignment. Sit down with a banker and say to him, hey, would you invest in energy efficiency in a building and why? And find out why they would and find out why they wouldn't. And do it as a class project. Here, I have a class project for you. Find out what bankers think. Because They're all very nice people, and I disparage them to their faces as well. I was with thousands of them at an event last night. But they're all really nice people. It's just tough for them to learn something new. You know, it's hard. So I want to talk about case studies of real buildings. Okay? These are real buildings where I did the energy audit, where I've helped fix them, where I did the pre and post energy usage. I love this building. This is in Auburn, New York. This is the Auburn Housing Authority. It's 188 units. It's 24 buildings. Those of you that have studied architecture, you can see from the buildings. On the upper left-hand corner, this is called Early Modern Eisenhower Bomb Shelter. It's very, very prominent architecture from the 50s and 60s. But get back there. We put in new furnaces. We put in new hot water makers. We did lighting and refrigeration. Look at that number underneath there. It says 50% gas savings. The executive director of the Housing Authority wrote a 2-page thank you letter to us. You don't get those too often. Saying, you guys did a really good job. But the big moneymaker on the building, word around Auburn was, hey, Auburn Heights fixed up their building. Their vacancy rate went from 20% to 1%. Increased their cash flow, and increased their rent. That was a good thing. We made them a lot of money. This is an historic building in just south of Albany, New York. It was an engineering school built in 1873 by a Wall Street person who didn't know anything about running an engineering school, and it promptly went under. People that are my age that live in this town, all went to grade school in this building. It's absolutely glorious on the outside. It's been changed to senior housing. And when it was changed to senior housing, nothing was done with the retrofit. The attic was somewhat insulated. The boilers were crappy, to say the least. And all we did was put attic insulation in and air seal it properly, change the heating and domestic hot water savings, or the systems, and we got 20% savings. But this is an historic preservation building, and the historical preservation people didn't come after us. They didn't say a word. And that's a really hard thing to do in historic preservation buildings, is to keep the historical preservation people non-hysterical. It worked. This is what you can do with a good energy retrofit. This is a classic New York City 5-story walk-up building, and nothing fancy. Mod rehab. We did what's called a checkerboard rehab. Did one line at a time. So we did the boilers, but apartments were air sealed. They got new windows. They got better insulation in the walls, better controls on the boilers. The oil usage declined. Back up. The oil usage declined, weather adjusted, 63.7%. The average savings per apartment in oil alone, not electric, was over $2,100 per apartment. And the retrofit cost $4,000 per apartment. Now, we got government money through the New York State Weatherization Assistance Program, so it made it super cost effective. And this is from an owner who told me, I don't use that weatherization stuff, it's a bunch of crap. Now he loves the weatherization program. Really good. This is also the best weatherization program in the United States. It's run by a guy named Dan Reber. It's called the Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation. This, again, is upstate New York between Rochester and Syracuse. This is an all-electric building. Back in the 60s, before all you guys were born, the head of the Atomic Energy Commission said to us, atomic energy is going to be so cost-effective, soon electricity will be too cheap to meter. This is his exact words. So they built a lot of all-electrically heated buildings all over the country. So these tenants are paying for their own electric heat, individually metered. So we went in and we tightened up the apartments. That's all. We put a blower door in the apartments. We tightened up the apartments. We made them more cost effective. And the average apartment, we tightened 24%. It's still pretty leaky. Their electric bills went down 25%. These are little old ladies. That's a good deal. The gas used for hot water, just by changing shower heads and aerators and putting in new hot water heaters in, the gas use went down 46%. But shower heads and aerators alone cut the water bill by 21%. These are seniors. They don't use much water. This is big money, okay? picture. Last week, I went to a building, and I found this toilet. And the apartment was vacant, and I had to pee. So I closed the door to the bathroom, and I peed. And I washed my hands. Yes, I washed my hands after I pee. And I flushed the toilet. And while I was looking at the rest of the apartment, the toilet was running constantly because the flapper valve was broken. And the toilet was running and running and running and running. And I bent over and fixed the flapper valve and pushed it back down. And then I looked at the toilet. If you pick up the lid to a toilet, you can see the date that it was manufactured. Happy 58th birthday, toilet. What the hell? This is crazy. This is a building I'm very familiar with. The owner of the building said, the costs in my building for water are terrible. Obviously, there's leaks in the building. And I'm like, Al, it's not the leaks. It's your toilets. Your toilets are crappy. No pun intended. He changed the toilets from the kind of toilets I showed you in the last picture to the 1.1 gallon per flush that does not have a flapper valve in it. It's called a power flush toilet. It makes the zoom noise when you flush it. His water use went down 40% in 1 month, just from toilets. When he told me beforehand, no, those toilets don't work. My plumber told me so. I'm like, how old's your plumber? He said, 84. It's like, this is the advice that people are getting on energy efficiency. 1.2-year payback on this building. Okay, now we go back to Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town versus the Solaire. How many people think the old building is more efficient? Raise your hand. How many people think the new building is more efficient? Raise your hand. How many people are cowards and won't raise their hand? There's about a third of you that won't raise your hand. The old building uses a third less energy than the new building to heat the building. It's partially unfair because the new building has 24-hour ventilation, so that increases the cost a little bit. But the old building is incredibly well managed. I did the energy audit of that building. It took 6 months. And when first going through it, I didn't think that we could get any. I thought, old building, pig. No, old building, super efficient. And the management company was very, very good at what it did. Also, the building had been painted 500,000 times, which tightens up the interior of the apartments so they don't leak that much. So the apartments are tight and everything's pretty good. The management company got the number. I want you to look in this room. There's 2 types of lights in this room, and out in the hall there's probably 6 more. In an 11,000 unit building, they have 6 types of fixtures. 6. That reduces maintenance. That increases your ability to buy bulbs in bulk and get a better price. It's not just how good the building is, it's how well the building is managed. And many times a building that is not so good is not so good because it's not managed well. I don't find that to be the case. Anybody that sits and says, this building's managed like a piece of crap, it really isn't. You have to train your staff and you have to tell them what you want done in the building and what results you want, and then you can do better. Thank you. Okay, 43 minutes. I got yelled at. Too many slides. These graphics aren't good. Different colors from people that don't do presentations all the time. And they said, you have too many slides for 45 minutes. I am 44 minutes right now. I explain to them I do presentations every once in a while. So, okay, now I've finished ridiculing the people that were ridiculing me. Now you can ask the tough questions. Ready, go.
So, thank you.
This is the owner. This is the owner talking for those of you that are at home.
Okay.
And I'm not going to come fix your buildings. No, go ahead.
Thank you for this. It was great. I guess one of the big questions that I have.
Are you talking into the microphone?
I am, thank you.
Okay.
As an owner-manager is buy-in. Obviously, there are people that pay the water bills and pay the gas bills, and there are people that use the water and don't pay the water bill and gas bill. How do you get tenant buy-in? What suggestions do you have for that?
That toilet building that I showed you has all tenants. Okay? Average 2.5 to 3 people per apartment. and they don't pay for their water. The use went down 40%. Water is a straight line. Change the shower heads, change the aerators, change the toilets, you save money. And water is your biggest bill by a long shot. And it's killing you. Okay? It's all cash flow. Now, will you get tenant buy-in for turning the heat down in the building? No, but you got to tighten the apartments up first, and then the tenants are more comfortable. I moved into an apartment 25 years ago, and it was freezing. And then as soon as it got like cold, the building went up to 91 degrees because the heating system didn't know how to adjust. But in those lower temperatures, I froze. So I went along and noticed that this is, note the cobbler's kids don't have shoes. I looked along the floor, and there was a gap between the sheetrock and the floor that was, the building was gut rehabbed in '86, foamed along that, and all of a sudden comfort happened. And when the building got overheated, I turned the radiators off, because then I don't have to open the windows and see this, you know, and also there's a thing called tenant education. You know, a sticker on the window that says, please don't open the windows in the hallway. It makes the apartments on the upper floor too hot. What? Well, that's stack effect. I'll have to do a whole class on stack effect some other time. It's weird science. Questions? Yeah, in the corner. Are you talking into a mic? Okay. You have to talk into a mic.
Thank you very much for this great overview. I have two questions. Where do you see the role of active building management and all those systems? Because S1, for example, has many of these, but some of them don't work, and it goes into the inefficiencies that you talked about. And second, it's great to have tenants' occupation, but how do you see the behavior of the actual residents to play into the energy efficiency? Because there's only that much that you can do with air sealing, efficiency, water flow of the toilets. I'm interested in your opinion.
Okay, so are you talking about energy managers in the building or energy management systems in the building?
Energy management systems in the building?
Oh, okay. So the idea in any energy management system is to make it easy and very understandable. And the worst thing to do is buy a specific system for your building, because once that company goes out of business, you won't have a manual anymore. So it's really good to get an off-the-shelf thing, and when the system goes in, to train the super in the building and to have the company that puts it in not only give you written, the book, how to do it, but a video. Here's how to do it. And now everybody can do it on their phone. So you need to train the staff on how to use the energy management system, and you also need to have a record of how to use the energy management system when no one's around. Now, I completely disagree with you about tenants and residents in buildings that you can't train them, because when they go from a 5-gallon shower head to a 1-gallon shower head, that's a good shower head, quality shower head, they don't notice the difference, and the water isn't spraying all over the place. The same is true with an aerator. If you manage multifamily buildings, you would know that the place that where the floor rots the fastest is right in front of the bathroom sink and right in front of the kitchen sink, because it splashes up. So reducing water usage is also a durability thing. If you tighten an apartment up, you stop the bugs from coming floor to floor. So it increases fire stopping, and at the same time, it reduces vermin moving floor to floor. And if you put something like boric acid between the walls before you air seal, when the roaches come in and touch that, they lick their feet and they die. So there's ways to turn an energy efficiency retrofit into something that's health, safety, durability, vermin control, and everything else. And then tenants really like it. And then when you turn the heat down, the first complaint that you get, you go to their apartment or their office with a digital thermometer. You say, it's 79 degrees in here. Code says it's got to be 68. I'm way over. You know? And I have to say, in these politically incorrect times, I talk to owners from across the country, and they tell me, I have Jamaicans in my building. You don't have any idea. Jamaicans want the apartment at 96. But then owners tell me, well, I have Protestants in my building. I have Jews in my building. I have black people in my building. I have Puerto Ricans in my building. All of them tell me that every tenant wants the building at 96, no matter what their race, color, and creed is. And I'm sorry, it's not accurate. People want to sleep in a cool temperature. They want the temperature turned down at night, and if you don't turn the temperature down at night, they open the window. So it's a two-way street, and it's an education thing. Over here. Are there questions online?
Yes, we actually have one question from online.
Just one.
Right now.
Let's give it the one.
Oh, we have more than one? Yeah, we have several.
I'll get you next.
So Bruce has a question. So many
Who's Bruce? Where's he from? Doesn't say.
Yes,
okay.
Sure.
Bruce wouldn't give any information.
Different type
All right.
of webinar today. Yes. So many multifamily buildings are master metered for gas delivery used to heat space and water. And tenants are generally charged for that gas on a per square foot basis. Are any new technologies or financing available to resolve this?
I don't know if his analysis is accurate, because most buildings aren't charged that way. Most multifamily buildings in the United States have separate heating for individual buildings, and tenants pay for their own heat by apartment, either by a heat pump or a furnace or a boiler. So I don't think that's accurate. Many buildings are centrally heated, but not many have a separate metering system for each apartment or breaking down things per square foot. However, when you invest in energy efficiency in a building and go back to saving energy in the building under his scenario, the tenants pay less money in the building, and so they're more comfortable, so they tend to stay. If you go from not charging tenants to charging tenants per square foot, you have 20% vacancy rate immediately. I've seen it in buildings in Philadelphia. Immediately, 20% vacancy rate. But if you invest in energy efficiency and then begin to charge tenants while you reduce their rent, it levels out. But the number one reason in the United States that tenants move out of an apartment is cost. The second is smell. Second is smell. And smell is airtightness, because they smell Mrs. McGillicuddy's, bluefish fried in garlic downstairs. Okay, you had a question right here. Talking to the mic.
Are there any efforts to change the culture of the tradespeople and the contractors?
Oh, that's a really good question. Is there anything to train the tradespeople and the contractors? I will say the biggest move over the last 30 years has been the Building Performance Institute, which is out of Malta, New York, but it's a national organization, and they give certifications for contractors on airtightness and single-family energy efficiency. Who's the single-family guy? Are you BPI certified?
It's expired, but
okay.
A big part was going through the training, both energy and also health and safety.
Right. So they actually have trainings for people, and most states require that someone have some kind of certification for doing energy audits in single-family homes. There's also certifications for insulation and air sealing and all kinds of stuff like that, and BPI has all those certifications. Questions? Yeah?
Two quick questions. First is, what is the merit of using heat pumps? The second is, what difference does aggressive and friendly financing make?
I don't know what you mean by aggressive and friendly financing.
Somebody really wants to get these retrofits done, and they'll provide financing for you on favorable terms, perhaps very favorable terms.
You mean like an energy service company?
Something like that, I imagine.
Okay, you came in late and we talked about this earlier. So I don't think if an owner has the ability to borrow money, that they should do an energy service company agreement, because the energy service company charges you for the cost of money at least twice, and they don't do a full retrofit. And I'm sorry, what was your first question?
What is the merit of using a heat pump?
Okay, so everybody wants a new technology, and I don't think that buildings should convert from what they have right now to a heat pump, because, again, you missed the beginning, but all of our buildings are pigs. And it's much more important to invest in efficiency than it is in buying a new system. And the salespeople come in and they say to you, you need a heat pump. Okay. How much will it save me? Well, they never know that number because they don't know how much you're using. So the trick is to make your building efficient first. It's like everybody that's a solar advocate, that's a good solar advocate, when someone says, I want to put a solar system in my building, the solar advocate and the solar installer will say, wouldn't it be a good idea if you reduce the load in your building first so the solar could pick up a bigger part of the load? And this is what my entire talk today was about. Efficiency over technology, even though efficiency is the best technology. In the back.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
What's your name?
My name is Eva.
Hi, Eva.
Hi.
Go.
I'm a first year MEM FES student. And my question is, how do you deal with split incentives? Let's say the tenants need to pay utilities and they don't own the building. And what's your solution to get the building owners on board if they don't need to share the utility cost of the building management system?
If you ask the building owner what his or her average tenancy is in a building like that, they'll say 9 months, 12 months. They don't have stability of tenancy. And when a tenant moves out, he has a vacancy for 2 months. It's all about cash flow. And if they did a little bit in the building, their cash flow would increase. As you saw, even in the Auburn Housing Authority, fix the building. These are people that pay nothing for energy. And the vacancy rate went from 20% to 1%. The most expensive thing for an owner to have is vacancies. And the best thing for an owner to have is stability of tenancy. When I was walking through the South Bronx in the 80s, I went to 17 buildings, all owned by a guy named Morris Becker. His buildings were clean, wonderful, energy efficient, in great shape. He went to every building every day. And I talked to the tenants. The average tenant in his building lived there 23 years. That's money. And he never had a vacancy. Yes, we have a question from the field.
Yes, we actually have quite a few more questions from online, but I'm
Okay.
afraid we only have time for one more question. So I'll ask the one.
I have time if you guys have time, but go ahead. I know you all have very busy schedules. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll do one more question from online. So Susan has a question. Do you ever recommend heat recovery ventilation systems?
Oh, really great question. I love heat recovery ventilation systems, but you need to have a building where there's a lot of ventilation in the building and there's a place to use the heat recovery. So that means you have to have something in the hallway that is pressurizing the hallway while you're extracting heat. You have to look at the cost effectiveness of it because heat recovery systems only work when the ducts are tight and the ducts are sealed, and sealing ducts and balancing them using things called constant air regulators must be done before you do a heat recovery system. I did it fast. You want to do one more? One more, come on.
Could you talk a bit more about policy implications for multifamily buildings?
About what?
Policy, energy efficiency, if there are any requirements and mandates for multifamily buildings specifically.
I'm sorry, what was the word you used?
Policy.
Oh, policy things. Policy things that work for energy efficiency. Well, a lot of cities are mandating that buildings have to be benchmarked if they're this size or bigger. And if the buildings are benchmarked, they say, many cities are now saying, well, and you have to get an energy audit. Well, if the buildings are efficient, why should we punish the building owners that are efficient to get an energy audit? So if you want to make good energy policy in all buildings, and you want to get people to benchmark the buildings, just say to them, okay, we'll benchmark the buildings, but the top 5% pigs, the biggest users, have to get an energy audit next year. The next 5% the following year. The next 5% the following year. So from a policy standpoint, go after the big users. That's the best way to do it, rather than punishing everyone.
Thank you very much, Andy. We're very grateful to have you here today. And thanks to our in-person and online audiences. For the online audience, please tune in next Thursday at 11:45 a.m. for our next webinar. And thank you.
And I'll stick around if people have questions.